Well, hello again everyone. I've had a couple of practice goes at airbrushing the clouds, so I reckon it's time now to do it for real on the Toybox. So I'm going to do the lid first because then I can flip it up onto its base. I'm not going to paint clouds on the base, of course, and then I can turn it around and do all the sides without having to rest it on any of the sides to do the top, if that makes any sense. So this toy box is one I made for young Summer many years ago before she was born, and it was originally painted blue with sort of cartoon clouds on it, but Summer wanted it refurbished for our new grandson's birth, so she chose a colour that matched the decor of the nursery and requested that it was painted with clouds to match the original theme. I'm going to do one face at a time of this, and the first thing to do, of course, as before, is to just key it a little bit with some Scotch Brite. And then it's time to start laying out the shape of the clouds just like I did when I was practicing on the plywood sheet. Well, I managed to avoid any over painting of that little bit, so now it's time to do the torn kitchen roll edges to sharpen up a few little bits of those clouds just around the outside of them. I'm going to do that in the same colour. I've now mixed up, I've got rid of that grey, I've mixed up some white in the airbrush, but I've not cleaned the airbrush particularly thoroughly, so there's a tiny little bit of grey in there. And I'm now going to go and sort of fill in the bulk of these clouds, dust them in with the white, just to make them that little bit brighter. Right, I've mixed up some grey again. I put a tiny bit of black in with this leftover white, add a little bit more white too. And yeah, now I'm just going to go around and do a mixture of freehand and with the kitchen roll templates just to add the depth into the clouds, just exactly like we did before. I guess you've seen me do this a few times now, so the next thing, of course, is the highlights. Perfect, I think my time-lapse battery ran out while I was doing that, but I'm having some problems with the airbrush. As I said, I think in the last video, the airbrush is properly filthy. I think I need to really strip it down and give it a good thorough clean now, because it's giving me all sorts of problems, and the better the airbrush is working, the better this is going to be. I'm quite pleased with it so far, but yeah, I think that's probably it for tonight. I'm going to strip down the airbrush, give it a good thorough clean, and then we'll reconvene perhaps tomorrow to carry on with this. Well, it's the next day now, and I've given the airbrush a good old thorough clean, and I'm just going to mix some white up in it and just finish the highlights on this last cloud, maybe a little bit more on here, and yeah, then that will probably be the design finished on the top here. So now I've basically got to do all the other surfaces apart from the base. So I'm going to crack on with that now. I'm just going to flip it over. I think I'll do the back first, and I have to mask off the hinges and stuff. And yeah, we'll crack through this in much the same way, I think. It's getting quite late now, so I think I'm going to pack up there because I'm getting a bit tired, so I don't want to make any mistakes. I've still got the front to do and the other side, so perhaps we'll get on to that tomorrow evening. Well, it is indeed the next day now, so I'm going to turn this round to the other side and crack on. Right, last side, the front, and of course that's going to be the main side that's on show. That's why I've left it till last, because hopefully my clouds are improving as I go. Not sure, what do you reckon? That's all the clouds done, and once again it's getting a little bit late, so I'm going to leave it there for tonight. What I want to do really is put something else in, something like an aeroplane or something like that, just to make it a little bit more interesting as a toy box. Well, it's a few days later, and yesterday I put a coat of UVLS clear over this, just so I can paint on top of it and perhaps tape to it a little bit without damaging the cloud design underneath, because I want to put an aeroplane of some sort on there. So I printed out a nice aeroplane reference. I think I'm going to put it a little bit less of an angle. I'm going to put it something like that, I think. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've actually got several copies of this reference. I'm going to cut out the basic shape of the plane. Now, I am going to ignore things like the strutting and the cables and stuff, because that's just going to be too fiddly to deal with quite at the moment. So yeah, it's just going to be the main outline of it, and we'll deal with those, I think, separately. so now I'm going to position the plane roughly where I want it. I think probably about there. Yeah, so I think that looks about right, but because I usually paint on steel and I use magnets, don't I, to hold these down, and that's not going to work on this plywood, so I'm just going to cut some small holes around the perimeter. We can use tape over the top of them to hold that a bit steadier. Now I'm also going to just go around the edge with some newspaper, just so I don't get any overspray marks on the edge of that main paper template, because that wouldn't be good, would it? Okay, so now that's done, I'm going to fill in that just with white for the moment, just to give the outline for the plane. And where we've got a few delicate bits, I'll hold that sort of mask down with a cocktail stick, I think. Now, so I've made a bit of a mistake. What I forgot about was the inside bits where you can see through the plane to the sky beyond. I meant to add those in with some extra masking. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that now, and then we may have to try and correct that later. So again, as before, I'm going to cut some little triangular holes so I can stick these in. Hopefully we'll be able to get around that. So let's position this in here. Well, the next thing I think I'm going to do is to cut out the orange bits so I can spray in where the plane is orange. Okay folks, I have decided on a different tack because this is going to be far too fiddly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the just the cowling around the engine and put that in to mask that off and leave that white, and then just spray the whole rest of the whole thing orange, and then we'll bring in the rest of the detail. I think that'll work better. Right folks, I feel like I'm going down the wrong road with all this paper masking, so I'm going to take it all off and have a look at what it actually looks like on the box, because I'm not really feeling that this is going too well. So I've decided a better way is to do it bit by bit. So I'm going to start with the engine cowling. I've cut out some acetate just with the general shape, and I'm going to just make that just a little bit whiter again. So you can see there's a little bit of a shadow on this cowling, so I'm just going to bring that in a little bit, just make that white just a touch grayer. Now I'm going to put this other acetate over the top, and this has just got the hole there, so I'm just going to do that in solid black for the moment. Right, now I'm going to do the centre boss of the propeller. I'll reuse this bit of acetate because there's no real reason not to. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with some pure white and just bring in a highlight around the front end of the cowl there. Now while I've got some of the white in the brush, I'm going to try and add in this little highlight here, and also some of these little bits which are just the workings of the engine, the push rod housings and stuff. Right, well, dinner's nearly ready, so I'm going to stop there for a moment and I might come back to it after I've eaten. Right, well, I'm back after dinner, and I think the next thing to do is to add in these little orange, I guess they're sort of ducts or something on the outside of the cowling. I'll also bring in this little air intake area in black as well, I think. Now I'm starting with a fresh bit of acetate, and we're going to do the top wing. So what I want to do is I'm just going to cut out the white parts of the wing. And obviously there's a lot of different shading and stuff going on there, but I'm going to deal with it a bit at a time. So let's mark that out. Right, now I'm going to do a similar exercise with the leading edge of the front wings, and I may as well bring in these little bits on the wheel housing things as well. Well, it's been a few days since I was on this. Had to stop quite suddenly last time you saw me, and yeah, been very busy, so I've not been able to get back to it. But we're here now, and I think what I'm going to start with is just carrying on adding in the detail on this plane, and I'm going to start with the sort of struts between the two sets of wings. Well, we need to make some sort of attempt at the pilot. Now on the reference, he's just a sort of a creamy browny blob. So yeah, I'm gonna make up a little shield to protect the top of the aeroplane, and then we'll make a creamy browny blob. Now I'm going to very carefully cut out the shape of the windshield, and yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I think we can do it. Right, as I say, this is going to be super tricky, but I reckon we can do it. So yeah, it's been made slightly more awkward by the fact that it's white on a white background, but there you go, we just have to cope with that. Super fiddly. Yep, I'm reasonably pleased with that, I think. Right, now, I think the next thing to do is probably these struts here. So I'm going to make a little template for those. Right, now I think it's time to add the smoke. So I need to make up a shield for this wing and the cowling, really, don't I? Probably already got a shield for the cowling, haven't I? Yes, here we go. I've now made a little slit in the acetate. I'm going to try and add in the struts that support the wheels. It's going to be a bit tricky, but we're going to give it a go. Right, well, I'm starting to get there, I think. I'm reasonably pleased with it. I'm going to stop now for tonight because I am quite tired and I don't want to go crazy and muck it up. So, yeah, back on it tomorrow evening, perhaps. Well, it's the next day, and yeah, I think we're certainly approaching the point where we'll be about done on this plane, but I want to add in the little tensioning wires between the wings. Now, not really skilled enough to spray a fine enough airbrush line. I could make up a little shield, perhaps just a slit in a bit of paper, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add them in with this fine permanent marker. Maybe cheating, but that's what I'm going to do. Now I think the only thing that remains is to add the sort of blurry propeller effect, and that's quite faint, really. But I think what I need to do is to do these two, I need to mask off the propeller cone. So I have kept the original mask that I used for that. So that should go on there. I'll cut a little triangular hole so we can tape it on. Oh, I don't drop it. plateau. So I'm going to do these two propeller blades first. So they're very, very faint, so they hardly need anything. I'm going to make myself up some nice dark grey. So there we go. I think that is that plane got about as good as I can get it, really. I'm quite pleased with it. Well, that's this toy box finished. I've given all the sides and the top 2 coats of UVLS clear, so hopefully that'll stand up to a little bit of wear and tear, and yeah, I'm quite pleased with it.